We are in progress. I am Debbie Marlowe, and I am here with a very special guest. This is kind of a selfish guest for me because I'm learning all about new water systems as I'm building my new house. And so Jane has been kind enough to come and talk with us, Jane Emma, and she is from the GoodFor company, and they do water filtration and many other things. And I'm going to let her uh, talk to you about that today. Um, I'm very much in the clean living space, clean beauty, clean food, as most of us are. Even if we haven't, even if we don't know everything, we at least try. We're triers. We like information. And Jane is coming on to kind of give us a little more of a deep dive, but a high level, explain it to us like we're second graders kind of situation. So
Yep.
Jane, all right, tell us why we should be a little nervous about our water.
Um, where do we start? No, I'm just kidding. Look, I think first and foremost, I think for a lot of us, we have to understand the impact and the role that water truly plays in our life. It is the one thing that we interact with the most throughout the day, whether we realize it or not. We start our day with washing, brushing our teeth and washing our face and maybe making coffee and tea and whatever it is. But this is a resource that we interact with constantly throughout the day. And so that every time you interact with it, when your water is at its best, you're giving yourself that continued foundation of true wellness. Because something I talk about often is like, especially in the clean living space, right? We are absolutely trying to do our best to sort through the, pardon my French, copious amounts of garbage and information that is out there. And it is a lot. And it is, if you're somebody that's just now starting to make the switch, or you're realizing, hey, all these phthalates and all of this, like it's messing with my hormones and I don't want this anymore, it can feel overwhelming. And so for me, I think that water is so foundational and it's so universal in your home that if you want to take one big step in the right direction, uh in a way that really impacts not just yourself also, right? Our creams and our personal care products don't really impact our children or our husband or our partners or whoever it is, right? Necessarily,
Mhm.
unless they're using those creams for whatever reason. But those are more almost like selfish switches, good switches, but they're for us.
Right.
But water is something that can impact the entire family. And so, I think like if we're spending the extra dollars, and right now it's so many extra dollars on buying organic, on trying to, I mean, I spend so much time reading the back of labels in food, and I have a 10, a 9, and a 2.5 year old, and like, they roll their eyes at me constantly still. Mom, can we just one time have Fruit Loops, or can we just one
Right.
time have this? And I'm like, no, because one time is just one too many,
Hmm.
because I know too much now. So
Right.
just the answer is no. But with water, they will now, if we go out to a restaurant, they will pick up the cup and they'll smell it and they'll be able to tell me, if is it purified, is it filtered, or is it tap? And I
There you
love
go.
that. I love that. So why is water important? If you're buying organic fruits and veggies, but you're washing them in chlorinated tap water, to me personally, it doesn't make sense. It feels like we're sort of defeating the purpose. Not entirely, don't get me wrong. There's still a bunch of pesticides that are you're avoiding and all of that, but ultimately it's almost like you're recontaminating this precious food that you paid top dollar for. So I think that for a lot of people, the miscommunication and the disconnect really comes, unfortunately, and you're not going to hear me bash the government and the city, and I think that the municipality is doing the best that they can, but our triggers, or our baselines for what's healthy or not, are really dictated in the water field. They're dictated by budgetary constraints. So if
Absolutely.
every year you get a report from your water utility. If you're on a well, it's different. So right now I'm really just addressing city water. Okay. And
Water.
well,
Okay.
we can address at a different time, but those
Okay.
are a lot more unique and very like individualized. But for city water, you know, the health guideline for like what's healthy and then what the city and the state do, the discrepancy is like this, and it's crazy. And I just want to bring up a really actually recent example. And by recent, I mean literally as of 11:30 last night. There is a woman who I work with, and she's already in the clean living space. Her name is Cassandra McClure. She said she was like, "I'm so blown away. I can't believe I didn't pay attention to this before." So I'm glad that I was able to open her eyes. But what her and I did, I guess let me rewind. So she told me she lives in Palo Alto, and she was like, we live in a, and we're lucky to live in an upscale community, and our water is supposed to be some of the best of the best. And I've heard this a lot, and I know that water is one of the only things that doesn't discriminate ever. So you can be in Palo Alto or you can be in Compton, and your water quality maybe in certain degrees might be better or worse, sure, but for the most part you're gonna have the same problems. You're gonna have chlorine, and if you have chlorine in there, which we need so that we're not instantly sick, so that's where people get this disconnect. Oh, in Mexico I can't drink the water, it's not safe, but here we have this luxury. Well, because it's chlorinated to death. That's why.
Right.
Which, so it serves its purpose, and don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but this chlorine interacts with other organic matter inside of the pipes, and it's going through miles and miles and miles of old,
Miles.
decrepit infrastructure that, they put out a bill, I don't or a bill or proposal to try to address it in like 2035. And I'm like, okay, but how many people are gonna, I don't know, get
Have
cancer in
issues.
between that
Yeah.
time?
Yeah.
Or how many more children are we going to label hyperactive because there's excess lead in their water, and there's lead in the pipe systems that are at their school, and all of these things. So, do I think that water is the thing that's going to solve everybody's problems? No, but considering how often we interact with it, how big of a role it plays in our lives,
I was gonna
um,
say it's our foundation of health. I mean, we're basically a bag of water walking around.
we
So,
are. Absolutely.
so it is foundational, and I feel very silly, I'll say silly, that it's taken me this long to really care. And it's not that I don't care, but that I'm really ready to do something about it. And I know there's a lot of people in my situation. But to your point, for a lot of people, I'll go with food. It's kind of like the FDA.
Yeah.
What the FDA or the RDA is even better, the recommended daily allowance was for 18-year-old men in World War I, and that was just to make sure that they would stay alive. That was not to thrive. So I'm guessing that the municipalities, let me say that word twice, and the government, and I'm not here to bash the government, everybody's doing the best they can. But the more we know, the more we realize it's like anything. 10 years later, you look back and think, wow, I could have done something different. So I think,
Exactly.
that we're
Exactly.
not we're not bashing anybody, but we just want you to have the knowledge so that you can make better choices.
Yeah, because look, there's actually so much, like the municipality, if you think about it, obviously there's so much that they have to filter out. Like, don't get me wrong, there
Right.
is so much that they have to do to get your water to a point where it can leave their plant. But what they can't
Mhm.
control, and what we're really talking about, is the last mile, so to speak. Once it leaves the plant, and what it has to travel through, what it picks up, how it alters, how it changes before it gets to your faucet. And so, and I don't want anybody to feel like silly or feel like you are, stupid for not thinking of these things. Like, no, 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 because when you get a letter from your city saying, "Hey, we passed all of the tests," there's not a lot of folks that stop and say, "Well, what was on the test?"
Or my favorite, there was a study. Well, who bankrolled the study?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, okay, let's just bring up, this is a really good example. I don't
We're
remember.
we're very passionate. This is good. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I saw, and mind you, okay, I saw this on social media, and I have not dug deeper yet, so I'm just putting this out there. However, that apparently ultra processed foods are not what make people sick and overweight. according to a study. So I just want everybody to, like, for a second, like, definitely when you hear a study, absolutely. Yes. Check who was behind the study and check what was on the test. And so
Right.
the problem really with water is that the majority of the contaminants that we need to be worried about, the majority of the chemicals that are even in circulation have only come into circulation in the last like 50 years.
Okay.
They don't have benchmarks for them. So
Right.
it's not like the city knows that there's, X amount of some, I don't know, PFAS chemical or PFAS
Yeah, that's
family
what
or
I was
whatever.
thinking.
And then they
Mhm.
just like said, okay, well, let's not tell anybody and hope for the best. They are just simply not testing for it. So,
Right.
how do
They're
these
always
things?
going to be behind. I mean, you know, as anybody knows here who's in health and wellness, like everything that is cutting edge, it takes 10, 15 years for everybody to catch up, So I'm
Yeah,
imagining the water system's the same way.
same way. And it's really expensive. And it's just money that, frankly, I guess they can't get together and they can't find.
Mhm.
But a lot of it is also, for example, I'm in the state of California, okay? And in California, they a couple times had tried to set a benchmark for chromium 6. And chromium 6 was made famous by the Aaron Brockovich movie.
Mhm.
And so if you've heard anything about that, then you know that it is quite toxic. And yes, those people were in direct, I mean, like the factory was right there. So it was really intense and obviously really prevalent. But the scary thing about water is really you have this chronic exposure. So I tell people, like, okay, if you stand next to a smoker once, twice, three times in your life for 5 minutes, even if you share that cigarette with them, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to make any
Mhm.
claims. I have no background in this. I'm just saying, but I feel like the likelihood of you developing lung cancer because of that 2 or 3 time exposure is pretty, 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 pretty low.
Right.
So it's not that. It's if you stand even for 1 minute, but every single day next to that person, it's the continuous buildup in your system. And so, with chlorinated water, when it interacts with organic matter in the pipes, first of all, Lord knows when's the last time they've been serviced, what they're made out of. Water has definitely caused pinhole leaks and groundwater has seeped into the pipes, and so there's a lot of
Glyphosate.
stuff, yeah, that interacts with it, and that's what creates things like trialomethanes. I know that this word finally, like, finally people are starting to hear it a little
Mhm.
bit more often, but this is how byproducts happen. And
Right.
so, these byproducts can cause everything from, impact your liver, impact your kidney. And although chemical byproducts, like disinfectant byproducts, they do filter out throughout your body. So you are the filter at that time. So it doesn't necessarily bioaccumulate, but I can only imagine, again, but if you're constantly, like, it's just constantly in your body in some capacity, it just cannot be good. But now I want to turn my attention to the heavy metals: cadmium, arsenic, lead, you name it, copper, all of these things, those do bioaccumulate in your water. And let's
Yes,
say
they
you're
do.
somebody who's like, okay, well, I maybe I cook with pitcher water, better than nothing. Like, you and
Mhm.
I were chatting before. I think having some solution is better than raw tap water, whether it's, a Brita. I would recommend a different one. I would recommend zero
The
water over
fluoride,
a
the
Brita.
fluoride freaks me out on the Brita, but that's me.
Yeah, it's not
I have
ideal, but
thyroid issues, so anytime I see fluoride, I'm like, ah.
there you
So,
go. And I have thyroid
right.
cancer in my
Mhm.
family. So it is a
Mhm.
huge, and on my mom's side, and both my grandmother, my mother, and
Mm.
like, it's something I'm watching very carefully as well.
Right.
And so,
But
it's just
to
some,
that point, even a Brita is better than nothing.
even a Brita is better than nothing, because at least, again, you're lowering the amount of chlorine that you're ingesting and all of that. And, speaking of studies, this was
Mhm.
something I found, and I have like resources for this. So if somebody reaches out and you want to see these studies, like, I can send it over to you. And I don't remember
Sure.
off the top of my head, but there was a study done where it showed like 53% of women that have breast cancer had a higher concentration of chlorine in their breast tissue. And I find that that's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
the causation, right? Again, this is a very
Right.
complicated topic, but I don't know if I want to wait to find out if it's valid or not, like
Right.
those are the kind of things where I'm like, we'll just be safe about it,
Yeah.
So, um, one thing I want to bring up is, again, going back to the
Mhm.
municipalities is, so there's this woman that I'm working with,
Yeah,
Cassandra.
we should run back to that.
Yeah,
Anybody that
sorry.
has
So,
a conversation with me, it's very circular.
oh, same.
We
Are you a
we hit
little
things.
ADHD?
Yeah,
Because
just
this
a
is my
tad.
brain. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
just a tad.
You're in good company. Okay. So, but we make it fun. Okay. At least we make
We
it
do.
fun. So, so we were having, a couple drinks. We were hanging out and she was telling me about how great her water was in Palo Alto. She's like, "Oh, my husband told me that it's really good and blah blah blah." And so again, I didn't want to break it to her at that point, but once she got home, we were at an event together, and once she flew home, she was like, "Oh, I had this little filter on my sink, and for some reason, like I just felt like, huh, like maybe I should go check it." And she goes and checks it, and she opens it up. It was a Filter Baby was the brand that she
Mhm.
had. It was before her and I got together. And she opened it up, and it was just all orange, and you could just see that it was rust, and it was all of that. And so, and she just kept, and she would like rinse it out, and she kept dumping it out. She was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." So we used Tap Score. Great company. They've made water testing so much more affordable, and not only affordable, but they've made it so you don't have to have like a complicated science degree to be able to read the
Huh.
results. So
Gotta write
they
that
break
down
it
before I
down,
forget.
talk about, breaking it down on a second grade level. They do that really,
Sure.
really well. And
Okay.
so we did the test. She got the results last night at 11:30. She sent it to me. Okay. I thought it was so funny. I was like, "Do you ever sleep?" But anyways, so she sent
Mhm.
them to me, and her water was indeed soft. So water hardness was not a problem. And so her husband
Right.
was right with that. But everything else that she had in her water, and I'm just going to list off a couple, was chloroform, THMs, bromodichloromethane, cadmium, arsenic, lead. And it was just like bing, 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 bing. And this is all showing, I'm going to kind of bring it up. So
Oh
this
yeah.
is like how you see the results. But you
That's
can
cool.
also toggle, these results are based on health guidelines. But you can toggle over and you can see what are the levels compared to the state and the federal guideline. And then
Okay.
all of a sudden, all these yellow lines turn into blue lines because they are not
It's
exceeding the
okay.
state level.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, that's nice. So chloroform, like, I'm just wondering, like,
Arsenic, cad
yes.
cadmium stuff. Yep.
And so, for things like, especially, I don't know that, I think about things like Alzheimer's and
Mhm.
dementia, and they call it type 3 diabetes, and sugar is a
Right.
huge, huge, huge part of this, and processed foods and all of that. But heavy metals are a huge
Another
contributor
big
to
part.
this as well.
I
And
do
you
a
talk
lot of
about,
heavy metal testing with clients, so I'm totally down with that. And there's a lot of folks that have heavy metal.
have you, so there was, talking about studies. So there was another
Mhm.
one done between, it was done on 18 to 25-year-olds, um, American 18 to 25-year-olds, and they were trying to see if there's a correlation between blood lead levels and the propensity to have hyperanxiety and
Mhm.
severe depression. And so with
Oh,
severe depression, there was a little bit of a, I guess the connection wasn't so clear. So they said that it seems that it does play a role, but in the
okay.
anxiety aspect, that lead levels had a direct
Mhm.
correlation to the instances that you have severe anxiety. And so you
Mhm.
think about society now, and again, I have 3 kids, and I
Right.
feel very passionately about this specific, where why does everything have to be solved with a pill? Like,
Right.
can we talk about how to just not get to that point? And
Right.
if you've cleaned up your water, if you've cleaned up your food, if you've taken care of removing scented candles and
Mhm. Fragrance.
detergents and fragrance and from your
Mhm.
home, and if at that point you still need the medical
Mhm.
community, at that point
Right.
I'm like, yeah, absolutely, because there
Mhm.
are instances where you do need that extra help, and I'm not here
Sure.
to say
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
anything against that.
No.
But
But you have to be responsible for yourself at a certain level too. I'm Gen X, but the boomer generation beyond me, it was just you didn't do those things. You went to the doctor and the doctor told you what to do. Our generation is a little more hands-on, but it's still an upward battle. I think the generations beyond me understand that more, but you have a responsibility for your own health, and
Yeah.
water's a great place to start, obviously.
Water is a great place to start. I think mostly again because of the amount of times that we interact with it. And so I think,
Hmm.
for a lot of people, like, okay, let's break it down. It's an investment, right?
It
Any way
is.
you twist and turn, if you're looking for a comprehensive solution, it's an investment.
Mhm.
But for families of two, kind of, but three or more for sure, you're going to see incremental savings in so many other aspects that seem kind of random that you don't actually think about. So you don't think like, oh, I'm going to put a water filter and then I'm going to save in all of these ways. Well, let me tell you how you're going to save.
Yeah, I'd love
Even
to hear that.
with like basic things. So let's talk about hard water and
Mhm.
cleaning supplies or personal care products and body wash, shampoo, whatever. Hard water takes 4 to 16 times the amount of product to sud properly. So I
Oh,
think something we can all relate to is
hmm.
standing at the kitchen sink and putting the freaking,
Hmm.
soap on the
Yeah,
sponge 100 times to clean 5
right,
dishes. Okay.
right.
When you have soft water, you use a third or fourth
Of
of that
what that
and
is.
you're good to go. So again, are you going to save millions of dollars? No, but the system begins to pay for itself in
Right,
more
right.
ways than one. And then from a
In more
practical
ways than you think.
Totally. Yes. And then also, if you think about it, right? Like, even if you don't have a whole home system, let's address,
Hmm.
like, we have shower filters
Okay.
specifically for the reason where, I want to meet you where you are. I think that maybe you're 18 years old and you just moved out of your parents' house and you're living in a dorm, but you're concerned about your acne because now you want to, go out and date boys or girls or whatever, right? And you're
Right.
worried and you learn that, hey, chlorine is exacerbating that and it's drying out my skin and it's clogging up my pores. So great, you have a shower filter. It's a great way to take care of it, right? It's something is
It's
better than
better than
nothing. But if you think about it again, the chlorine aspect. Chlorine does so much damage to our skin. It dries it out, it clogs it up.
nothing.
So then we keep buying these serums, creams, toners, all of these things to combat
Mhm.
what the
Right,
water just did to our skin,
right.
or families, children that have eczema or psoriasis. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a gut issue as well, and it
Hmm.
absolutely has to be dealt with from a dietary standpoint.
Right.
But we're talking about if you have a flare up, that that
Sure.
chlorine and those heavy metals are only going to exacerbate that issue.
Right.
So to me, it's if you're in the wellness space and if you're really looking to just truly protect yourself as much as possible, because it's either you pay for that or you pay for your medical bills.
Hmm.
Not to be drastic, but
It's your
that's
it's your
just the way it
insurance
is.
policy. Where do you want to pay for it? Do you want to pay for it in medical, or do you want to pay for it? Anybody that goes shopping with me, they're like, "Holy cow!" And I'm like, "Because I buy the good stuff." I said, "I'm going to pay for it one way or another. So I'd rather
Yeah. I'd
rather
rather
it
feel
be the good
good.
butter, the good butter and the good stuff." So yeah, I
Absolutely.
completely agree with that. Hmm.
Absolutely. As I drink out of my plastic, I'm sorry. We're not perfect. We're not going for perfection. We're going for consistency in our
Yes.
actions, right?
Yes.
So,
And I want to say Jane has not been feeling well and still showed up for this interview. So thank you for that. We appreciate it.
absolutely. Look, for
Mhm.
me, this is very easy. I tell people all the time, like in my life, because people ask, like, how did you end up in
Sure.
water filtration?
Water.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, actually, I was on my way to building an app, and I actually had a whole Kickstarter thing, and like I was really well on my way with this. And then when I truly started learning about this, it's a rabbit hole that I've not come out of, and I've been in for the
Hmm.
last decade.
Oh boy.
And it just infuriates me, actually. So
I'm
going
sure.
back to this Cassandra thing, right? So
Yes.
she
Back to
saw these
Cassandra.
Yeah, so but one of the things like I mean I emailed her right away and I was like we need to get on a call tomorrow morning and I want to review this with you because obviously she doesn't know anything about this and I wanted to
Right.
review it with her, but I was like, do you see what I mean? Do you see she's also spent she's had her own health scares and everything that really drove her diving into the
Mhm.
clean living and clean beauty space. And so
Right.
I was like, do you see how upsetting it is, the discrepancy between the information that we're being given and the real information that's out there,
Right.
and nobody's drawing
Mhm.
these conclusions. And when I was pregnant all 3 times, my doctor never ever talked to me about my water quality, not a single time. But
Mm-mm.
they talked to me about inducing me ahead of time. They talked to me about getting, doing the, what is it, the diabetes test with that
Oh, yeah, yeah.
awful drink. And I
Mhm.
wish I had known more. I wish I knew more back then that there's better options for that test and whatever.
Right.
So that's a little frustrating. But
But we're
I was
being
like,
kind to ourselves.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I was like, but you're not asking me about the it's
Yeah.
just frustrating. So
Yeah.
it's just not so water is
Yeah.
very much the foundation of all of our wellness efforts, and there's
Mhm.
other perks that benefit our home. So if you're a
Right.
homeowner, for example, and you buy this as an investment, right? You're protecting your water. This is like the practical benefits. You're protecting
Right.
your water using appliances, you're
Right.
extending the life, of the plumbing in your
Washers,
home and
dryers,
all of that. So the
refrigerators.
yeah, and most of the time when refrigerators break down, you know why? It's because of the water line,
Mhm.
actually. So you don't actually always need to be buying a new refrigerator. It's
Right.
really the issue in the water. So yeah, that's
Well,
kind of
we
my like high level.
I got an education because we are living in full time in an RV for the last 4 years. And
How
my husband,
cool.
yeah, it's very fun. I highly recommend it. But we are building a house, but we were planning on being in the RV for the rest of our days, and then we found this property, and that's a whole thing. But anyway, you know, wherever we go, we have to hook up to the water. And at one point, I'm like, and it has an in-house filtration system. And I happened to be over there one day, and I saw that it was a little dirty. And I was like, how often are you changing this? And he's like, oh, about every 6 months. And I'm like, yeah, no. And so we did that. And then I also have a filter on the hose that goes in to the
Smart.
RV because I was like, okay, I don't know much about water, but I know we need a filter getting into the RV. I know that the RV filter will work. And then we also have Berkey, just a small Berkey, which I would in the house, I don't want to have to deal with the Berkey. The Berkey's kind of a pain in the ass. But again, it's better than nothing. And I knew with us being on the road, one place may have good water and one place may not. So that was
Totally.
how I kind of started thinking about it. And then with the house getting closer to being done, I'm like, oh, okay, we need to start thinking about the filtration system, which is what led me to you. But anyway, all
Perfect.
right. So if somebody like myself just wants to do something, why don't you give us like I don't want to say low level. Why don't you give us like the starter pack? Like you said, the Brita, I've got the Berkey, you've got the shower thing, what they can do there, then kind of the medium and then the full house situation.
So, yes, I think it's important to note that, especially right now, like, look, whether you have a lot of money or you have a little bit of money, I think we're all very keen on budgeting because the
Mm-hmm.
world is extra crazy right now and
Yes,
prices
it
are
is.
insane no matter how much money you make.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, definitely something is better than nothing. I think when you break down the cost of a reverse osmosis, like a built-in system, I know for a lot of people it feels very like a big undertaking and it sounds complicated and all of these things. But after the initial investment, when you really break it down, your ongoing cost, including continuous filter changes, okay, we've done the math, it's anywhere from $20 to $25 a month.
Oh, not bad.
That's
Yeah.
less than you're gonna spend on bottled water and all of that, and
Mm-hmm.
just to put it into perspective, a 24 pack of, like, standard size water bottles holds 3 gallons of water. An
Right.
RO system can make 3 gallons of water about every hour to hour and a half, depending on your water pressure, and it's free flowing, and it doesn't require electricity. So if you're in an area, like I lived in Houston for a while, um, there was constantly power outages because you're
Right.
constantly under some sort of tornado or
Right.
whatever hurricane. But we always had water. But in those
Right.
moments, you would see in the news, and it would be like, "Oh, the
Mhm.
stores are sold out," and all of this drama. And it's like,
Right.
no. So you always have it, and it's
Have
there,
that.
and it's the closest thing to safe water that you can get.
Mhm.
But if you're renting, and I understand that, right? I
Mhm.
think that I would not go Brita. Like I truly,
Mhm.
after so much, I would not go to Brita. I think Zero Water is a great, great option because they
Okay.
bring their water down to very close to zero TDS.
Okay.
But on the flip side of that, I want to mention something about RO. Like for example, we always send our RO systems with an alkaline filter as well, because
Mhm.
just reverse osmosis water, I'm sure people have heard it, and I'm sure this is why people stay away from it, which
Mhm.
you shouldn't be afraid.
Right.
But reverse osmosis is void of nutrients, both good
Right.
and bad. And so what we want to do is we
Right.
filter out, purify all of that stuff, and then we remineralize it with the calcium,
Mineralize.
magnesium, and potassium. So
Right.
if you do use the zero water pitcher, they do not have a remineralizing aspect to them.
Ah.
So I
Okay.
would use Baja Gold sea salt. I would look into Quinton. I'm going to put that in the messages
Okay.
here. Quinton Minerals, Sea Minerals, amazing, amazing company.
Okay.
Baja Gold salt, um, is they've tested it against heavy metals, right? So
Okay.
sometimes you'll buy these salts and then they have heavy metals in them because, oh my God.
Right.
So you have to be specific about the brands. So if
Sure.
you go with the pitcher route, I would say don't forget to remineralize. And also keep in mind, I'm not saying that you're going to get all of your mineral nutrients from water. This comes from a
No.
balanced diet. However, if the water is void in nutrients, you're not going to feel satiated. So you're going to feel like you're
Right.
constantly drinking more
Thirsty.
water and nothing is happening. So that's frustrating. Okay. And then you're
Mhm.
going to be just peeing out
Sure.
all the actual nutrients that you have. And
Right.
your body is always going to try to reach an equilibrium. So if you don't have the nutrients
Okay.
bringing it in, it's going to donate the nutrients to the water, right?
Okay.
So we don't
Yeah.
want that. So we offer shower filters and faucet filters. Now, I've gotten the question before about our faucet filters. Very like approachable. It's like
Mhm.
$39. The shower filter is $59. The replacement filters
Perfect.
are, I think a 2-pack is $49, and they last depending, you'll always hear me say depending on water quality, because people ask
Mhm.
me for time frames and I'm like, well, if
I
you're in
really can't.
Arizona, you might have to change it every two to
Mhm.
three months. If you're in New
Right.
York, you might be good 6 to 9 months. So that
Right.
really is dependent, but
Okay.
really affordable price points. And our shower filters are actually super popular specifically because they do a great job. They're tiny but mighty.
Mhm.
They have 8 stages, but these 8 stages have been doubled up. So you'll see,
Okay.
I've seen companies out there, they're like 15 stages, 18 stages. Okay, there's only so much you can fit into that little filter. Okay.
Right.
So the number of stages is really not what's important. It's
Mm.
the
Okay.
stages that are in there. So we
Mhm.
just went with what, in our experience, is the most
Mhm.
effective. So
Okay.
it's a DIY. If I can do it, you can do it type of
We're gonna
thing. So it's universal. You can
unscrew
install
it.
it. Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. It's so easy, and it's already something. And I just want to bring up one really like it's a story that when I first started Good For, it just like, I mean, it
Mhm.
fired me up, and I was like, I'm where I'm supposed to be, clearly. So there was this
Right.
woman, well, because we started I started this business with whole home systems. So it was, and obviously
Okay.
these come with a price tag, and I understand that.
Right.
But there's nothing worse. Like, we're a for-profit business, and I'm not ashamed of that, but
Mhm. No.
I want to feel good about my business. I want to know
Mhm.
that, like, I did something for your home that you're going to love and that you're going to benefit, and like I don't
Right.
have to look over my shoulder, right? So,
Yeah.
but when we do a demo, and let's say a family doesn't isn't approved for traditional financing, or maybe they really can't squeeze it into their budget, or whatever it is so upsetting to walk out of there after showing them everything
Showing
that's in
them.
their water and then leaving them with no option. So at that
Right.
point, we launched, and we probably launched this a little too early, because I'm completely
You're ahead of the
self-funded
curve.
startup. Yeah, but I was just like, okay, we're just gonna do right by people. So we're gonna start a
Right.
rental program. And my partner was like, I don't think we can afford to do that. And I was like, well, we're gonna figure it out. So we started a rental program. It did hurt us a little
Mhm.
bit, to be honest with you. But we started this, to make it more accessible for people, and specifically for this woman. So she has a daughter who has several health issues, different issues, and she's a single mom taking care of this beautiful, beautiful child that relies
Mhm.
on like 3 or 4 different inhalers throughout the day, or used to, anyways.
Mhm.
And so with this rental program, she was able to get the reverse osmosis
Oh, good.
and the shower filters, and that was nice. Again, we're not doing the rental program right now. I'm so sorry. But in this instance, I was just so happy. So she calls me a few months later and she was like, "You know what? I've noticed that my daughter only needs like 1 to 2 inhalers a day over the last like 3 or 4 weeks." So this was probably
Mhm.
about like 6 to 8 weeks in after her install. And she was like, "I really think it's because of the shower filter and because of the water." And if
Sure.
you think about it, chlorine turns into a
I'm an
chlorine
asthmatic,
gas.
so I can tell you that any chemicals, you know, yeah. I mean, I'm very chemical sensitive because I mean, you could just feel it in your lungs. So, yeah, bet it was.
Yeah, and that to me, I was like, okay, this
Yeah.
is the reason, but it again, it
Yeah.
just goes to show how
Ah,
this one
so
resource.
validating.
Yes, it needs to be cleaned up. So basically,
Mhm.
it's up to us. And if you can't do anything else, then at least spring water, like glass bottled spring water. And I know there's a
Mhm.
few brands out there like Mountain Valley. I understand it is not cheap. It's truly not
Mhm.
cheap. And I wish that there was a better option, but try to stay away from plastic. But if you can't, but
Yeah.
at least make sure that it's truly spring water. That's
Spring
my
water.
biggest
Yeah.
recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of people don't realize like distilled water, I've seen people getting gallons of that. I'm like, that is not gonna, there's nothing in it. And to your point about the reverse osmosis, you have to clean it all out and then remineralize it so that you actually can use it or you can
Yes.
use it properly because like you said, you'll just be thirsty and whatnot. And I think a lot of folks got these reverse osmosis things and didn't remineralize, which I don't understand. I mean,
But
you
I
have
mean,
to,
because
but
nobody tells us about it, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
even in all of this wellness, like, look, you've been doing this for some time now too, right? And even you're
way
like,
too long.
I guess I
Yeah.
never really put it together on that big of a scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
really what I'm here to do, is to just
Yeah.
help draw those,
Right.
bring those points together, and to show you that,
Right.
like, of all the investments, of all the things that you can spend money on, spending money on yourself and your family's health
Mm-hmm.
is the most important.
It's the most important. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. And anybody that has questions, I will either ask you and forward to them or forward them to you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your company, anything, anything at all, how they can reach you, et cetera, because people are going to have more questions and
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
need you. They need you.
Absolutely. So I started the GoodFor company. Our website is, and I'll put it in the chat too, so you can put
Okay.
it in.
I'll put it all
It's
in.
the GoodFor, so it's TheGoodFor.com.
Mhm.
I started this so I've been in the water game about 10 years. I started this company just over 6 years ago. And we offer everything from simple faucet filters and shower filters to complex well water systems and beyond. So I can handle city water, well water. We've also worked with, small to medium sized businesses and large scale
Okay.
commercial. So we do a lot. We do a lot. We're also a plumbing company here locally. So it's like
Okay.
we really, really know our stuff.
Yeah.
And Puronics as a company, as a brand, and I was just talking to somebody about this. If I wanted to increase my bottom line and if I wanted to just focus on growing the GoodFor company, then I could have
Mhm.
ordered systems from China, put GoodFor on the side, and installed that in people's homes. Okay. I
Mhm.
did not do that because um, certifications to me are everything.
Right.
And the materials that are used are really, really, really important. And so, do
Mhm.
I hope that at some point our company will come out with something wonderful? Yes, and it's
Mhm.
very much in the future. But
But it's
right
got to be the
now,
right thing.
yes. So right now, what we really do is we curate the best of the best in home wellness products. So we started with water, and now we have air filtration, we have EMF protection, and we
Oh.
also have, yeah, like EMF discs. I have
Mm-hmm.
one on my cell
Yeah,
phone
you
right
do.
now.
Okay.
I have it on my laptop, and we have one at the house for the kids. And I actually say again, I don't know placebo effect or not.
Right.
Truly, I don't know, but my migraines have subsided.
Oh, wow.
You
You
know,
know,
where, what, I'm not sure, but I'm grateful. And am I going to be getting rid of that
right.
disc? Never, you know? So, so really what we're doing is just truly curating the best of the best, because I want you to know that
Right.
when you come to the Good For Co and you shop anything there, you know that these are products I personally use in my home. I give to my
Mm-hmm.
family, I recommend to my friends, to people that I love and care about, and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
treat my clients in that same way. And so yeah, so that's really it. And I'm always happy to talk, and
That's it.
I don't need you to buy from me for you to ask me questions. Like I might not be able to dedicate 3 hours to that, but please
Mhm.
ask me. And if
But
there's
yeah,
something more affordable and whatever, just I'm here to be a resource, and I'm happy
right.
to do it.
Well, we just need to spread the word because obviously, I'm even late to this game and, I kind of pride myself on being a little cutting edge and I totally missed the boat on this. So the more we can talk about it and the more people we can get involved, the smarter and healthier everybody will be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank
All
you so
right.
much for
I
having me.
am
I really
going,
enjoyed it.
yeah, of course. If you'll stick around just after I stop where is the recording? Oh, here it is. I don't have my glasses on. That's what the problem is. All right, everybody. I will get some information and any questions you have for Jane, just either contact her or me and we'll get them answered for you.